Call the meeting in order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first thing on the agenda, is the approval of minutes from the previous meeting.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the bills. Questions?
We had one there over 2,500 from Butler, but it was like 5 or 6 different invoices. It wasn't just one item.
Yeah, those are.
And we also have additionals on the desk too.
That came in after the list was,
Okay.
yeah.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the bills. Any further discussion, any questions? Seeing none, roll call please.
Volk,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Frith,
Aye.
Lightfoot.
Aye. Motion carries. Financial reports. Anything out of the ordinary? Put it in line, Kathy?
Yep, we just have to do a transfer for the LEC.
Transfer, you said?
Already?
Yep.
Law enforcement?
Yeah, I think it was 300,000.
So, basically what you're saying is we're already past our 10 mils.
And it's May,
Yep.
It's nice.
I better start working harder in Bismarck than I got this deal.
Now do we get the state's attorney to just close his ears and eyes and talk? Don't do that. I'm just joking, obviously. Don't do that.
So who do we need to contact?
We gotta work for the next session, because we've been harping on them for a few sessions, that just a base daily rate help would be very beneficial for us for counties that are well over that $10 rate.
You gotta really work on it now.
I think the thought, not initially, was hopefully it would be better, but it's not going to get better.
No.
I think it's pretty obvious it's not going to get better, so we're gonna need to.
That's why defund the police, then anybody's interested in doing that, so.
No. Okay. I guess I'd take a motion to approve the financials if everyone's okay with them.
So.
Okay, excuse me, we have a motion and a second to approve the financial reports. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Never remember if that's okay, we don't need to, we don't need them. Okay, roll call, I always forgot on that one. Treasurer's checks.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the treasurer's checks. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Agenda. We have an agenda in front of us with a couple of additions. So the one from Thursday.
I guess I would like to amend the agenda to include the support for the Aquatic Nuisance Species Awareness Week.
Okay. We'll put that under the end of new business if that's okay with everyone. Yeah, next week. Okay, anything else to add to the agenda?
If we want to discuss the OLED Advisory Committee,
Oh.
that will take place on May 11th, a week from tomorrow, before we meet again.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, we can have a discussion on it, we can add that as well.
We'll put that at the end of new business then.
Okay.
I would take a motion then to approve the agenda as amended.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries and the agenda is approved. Alright. Roger, morning.
Alright. I have, two estimates here for additional blinds for the windows. From Thompson's for $31,100 and one from the glass shop for $37,572. So, I don't see any reason not to go with Thompson's.
Yes, I move to accept the low bid.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the low bid for, shades from Thompson's. How much of the courthouse is this gonna do, the whole thing then?
Yes, everything except for the ends where, at the hallway and whatnot.
Okay, so this is just roller blinds basically in back of the cellular shades we have,
Actually,
so.
it could be in front of them.
Oh, it's in front of them.
Yeah, there's no room to put them in back.
Okay.
So we're not removing anything, we're just adding.
We're just adding for some privacy, basically, correct? And this will come out of, building fund, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, further discussion on accepting the low bid? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
Alright.
Yeah, thanks, Roger, appreciate it. Chris, morning.
Good morning. Just want to bring up, because of all the current flooding we have within the county, that we look at signing a flood emergency disaster declaration, basically so we can open up some of the local funds. I do know some roads are completely inundated, and some, I know for sure we have one washed completely out. If there's more, I guess Kevin might know, but we keep closing roads and we're gonna have to fix these roads, so I figured it'd be a good idea just to get a disaster declaration cleared locally, and hopefully we can get some state funds or federal funds later down the road.
I think there's many of them in the township system that I'm not even aware of.
I guess I would certainly, and for those township individuals out there listening, watching, ask that they convey those closures, that water over the road to not only Kevin, but Chris, and Steve's not here yet, but your 911 dispatchers. If they have to respond to an emergency and come upon a road closed that they weren't aware of, it's gonna delay that response time for them, and so hopefully everybody's getting that information to the LEC and 911 dispatch. But, you know, I think that's vitally important. So,
That's a good point, because I don't think we're aware of
yeah.
all of the closures.
Yeah.
And you said just in visiting before the meeting, what, 9 closures now on the county system, correct?
9 that are actually closed, and probably another half dozen that are fenced off and a hole or something.
Yeah, we can get around them, but they're
Fenced off.
going to need to be fixed when this is done, in other words. Yeah,
On our system, right.
yeah, that's just on the county system.
We notified 911 on the.
Ours, yeah. Right after we close them, we either call the sheriff or LEC. I mean, the word gets out anyway.
Because I'm not sure, Highway 20 and 17, all right?
Um,
Any blockage on those roads?
I haven't heard of any 17 where.
Well, all the way across.
No, 20 by Webster would be the worst, the closest one that I'm aware of.
Yeah, that close.
That's still open.
Still open.
There's no water yet.
I was gonna get a hold of Wyatt and see what that top of that elevation is south of Webster, and I can't remember if it's 62 or, but Morrison's right there. You know, it was 61.8 last evening, so I'm sure it's either pretty close or surpassed that 62 mark. And you know, at that point, I think that Highway 20 gets pretty close, so could be an issue. Yeah.
Looks like we're starting to go up, or down, the water's starting to go down way up north, but it's kind of peaked right now. Once in a while, you see one of the debris lines, the water's below the debris line, but not too many.
And can talk the possibility of rain coming this weekend again, so if we get more rain on top of it, it'll just kinda.
Hopefully 9 inches.
Yeah. We'll get any brick we can get right now. Do we have a copy of it? I guess I didn't. I didn't want to talk about this, did I? I'm sorry, I'll look at it.
That's an extra one if you
Oh,
want.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Everyone else is good? They have one? Yeah, you need one?
The question I always ask is, or always forget is, allowing the declaration unlocks some of our local funds, but then we have to get to a certain dollar figure for the federal funds to possibly get unlocked, plus we need a statewide disaster, correct?
Yep. I talked to Kevin, I believe we surpassed already just on the few roads, we've well surpassed our local.
Okay, we have.
Just on a county system, it's 47,000 something, so.
Well, that's it.
Yeah,
That's it, was like a lot more than that, okay. And we don't have, is the state done one yet?
The state has done the winter storm, we're waiting on one for
It'll happen, it's,
I'm
and
thinking,
I don't know if it's gonna be a divided one or if it's gonna blanket the
okay.
days involved.
with the flooding along the red, I'm sure the state will meet their.
Yeah, it's gonna have to, I think. Okay? Guess I would entertain a motion if there's any more discussion.
So, second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the flooding emergency disaster declaration for Ramsey County. Any further discussion or questions on the declaration as it stands in front of us? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, thank you, Chris.
thanks, Chris.
Anything else?
Thank you, gentlemen.
What you got? Okay, Bremer Bank representatives, I don't think we had anybody here yet, do we?
Nope, they're at 8:30.
Okay, so we'll just move on. Brian, good morning.
Good morning. So, went to an HR conference a couple weeks ago and went to a breakout session, basically called Drug-Free Workplace. And we had a couple attorneys do a presentation, and one is a attorney that, well, he's actually the executive director now for the North Dakota Association of Counties. And then we had a gal, Amy Dakota, she's a legal counsel for the School Board Association. And they basically had said, well, they said that pre-employment drug testing is illegal for non-safety sensitive employees. And we are doing the pre-employment drug testing at time. And what it is, it's a Fourth Amendment right for public employees of unreasonable search and seizure of their person. So started doing some more research, but I was the one asking the questions at the breakout session, just trying to get that clarified. And did some more research, and yeah, there was a lot of people that were sitting behind me like, really? You know, they've suspended their drug testing until they've, you know, got the final result of their research. So, so we definitely need to suspend at this time our pre-employment drug testing for non-safety sensitive employees, but the Sheriff's Department and the Highway Department, they would be considered safety sensitive because of the operating of the heavy machinery, you know, driving vehicles all the time with, you know, at high speeds, things like that. That's where the law enforcement comes into. This wouldn't change our reasonable suspicion drug testing, that still can continue. Random drug testing would continue with the two departments of the Sheriff's and the Highway Department. So that was quite interesting to hear them say that. There was a lot of people that were like, oh boy.
I got a
we need to
question,
make some
isn't
changes.
the safety of the public, isn't that sensitive safety? Whether you're running a piece of machinery or if you're in one of these offices in here, isn't that to the public?
Not according to the court.
Yeah.
How about like driving?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Wayne, what do you do out there at that Camp Rapid?
You get tested all the time.
You get tested
Every
all the
quarter.
time.
well, we're still gonna have testing, it's just a matter of, we can't do pre-employment for somebody that's not going to be safety sensitive. So anybody that wouldn't essentially, anybody that drives a vehicle still is gonna be tested pre-employment.
They should, yeah. I did consult with, what's her name? I have it right here. Alicia Bowman. She's on the, one of the HR people with Department of Human Services, and they have discontinued it for their employees a few years ago. And they don't even they don't safety sensitive, or they don't pre-employment test, most of their Department of Human Services employees.
So if you don't pre-employment test, once people are on board, you can test after that?
If you have reasonable suspicion.
There's no random testing?
The only random testing we can do is for DOT, the highway department and law enforcement. That must have been a change, that was a change that must have been done just a handful of years ago, if not less. Yeah. And I don't know if we need a motion for this to change, but it's highly suggested that we discontinue the practice ASAP.
Well, it's part of our policy, it's part of our policy manual, correct?
Yeah, there's we just gotta change one notation in there, one bullet point
Yeah.
about pre-employment.
I think it would be reasonable that we have a motion from the commission since we're making a change to the employee policy manual.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to just make a change to the manual, or we're not gonna make change to the manual currently, but just suspend that portion of the manual until we get further clarification. Okay, further discussion on the motion.
One thing I might suggest is we should maybe list what safety sensitive is, like if they're driving like a county vehicle, is that safety sensitive, or, and actually put that in writing. I mean, I get that question all the time, with my guys,
They're driving a county vehicle, we want to test it.
but that's up to you, it's up to you guys.
I think that would be a question for the state's attorney.
So generally speaking, just because you're behind the wheel doesn't necessarily meet that threshold. Brian and I can talk through it and get something drafted for you, but it is unconstitutional to pre-employment drug test people, so we have to suspend it.
So basically, we suspend it until you guys can get together, put together something for us on a change, and then we can look at that in a coming meeting then.
That sounds good.
Okay, okay.
One of the counties, they were random testing like the entire county too. And they were like they had suspended that until they can get final clarification on this. But yeah, it was kind of an eye-opening thing for all of us sitting in there, so.
I mean, I guess we want to make sure that we're doing things correctly so we don't give ourselves legal liability
Yeah,
possibilities.
litigation.
Okay, further discussion?
Are there other departments that would transport the public, like social services?
Well, again, it comes down to if it's a reasonable or a non-reasonable, yeah, post-employment, we can still test. It's just we can't do a pre-employment test.
No, okay.
So if we have reasonable suspicion after post-employment, or like we do random testing for anybody that has a vehicle, or in case of an accident, it's an automatic test.
Yeah.
That portion of the policy will remain unchanged. We just can't use it as a precursor and a pre-screener essentially as a condition of employment then.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, compensation study update.
I really don't have much to add. They're in their data collection time, and it could take anywhere from 30 to 45 days. So they're reaching out to other employers, collecting their data. They've had me fill out a few worksheets. But right now, we're just kind of, at our level, we're in a holding pattern as they do the data collection. So we do have calls with them every 2 weeks. I do have a call scheduled tomorrow with one of the reps from there that we've been working with, so. You guys, I think, received a little, like a timeline calendar, so obviously that can change as it goes forward, but.
The question I would ask of you, and I actually was just visiting with Blaine about it before the meeting, is on this timeline, obviously, like you said, the timeline can change. Are they going to be able to give us some type of a reasonable expectation on possibility of changes come maybe by the time we set our preliminary budget, so we have some ideas if we wanted to try to get it included this year or not?
When we talked to them, they couldn't guarantee it.
Okay.
It really depends on if they can get the data collected. That's the time consuming thing, is getting cooperation from other employers.
Okay, so we're gonna have to basically just kind of play it by ear, and
Right.
we'll see what happens when the time comes. Okay. Reasonable. Okay, any further questions for Brian? Seeing none, thanks Brian, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, do we have to wait till 8:30 since it says 8:30? I always ask that question because I don't know.
I think we just put that, so.
If you wanna wait, well, we're missing Kate yet.
Oh, Kate's still supposed to be coming, okay, well,
And
that's
it's no big
okay.
deal, I have the information, so Kate was just coming to be here, so if you wanna, we can go forward.
Well, I don't wanna waste your time if you're here to help, to give us a presentation, so let's
Sure.
move to Bremer.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I don't know, did you guys get the packets? Perfect. So yeah, I'll just kind of go through some of the numbers here quickly, and I want to make sure you can have some time to ask some questions too, but, so we started in June of last year, just to remind, so we're not quite at a year yet, but getting pretty close, all of a sudden, so, it's right away on the first page, it's at $2,850,000 as of right now. You can see we began the year at $2,951,000. Market hasn't been very kind to us as far as how it's been doing so far. But a couple of the numbers that I like to point out for a portfolio like this where it's all individual bonds and high quality, we really did this looking at the income. So far, year to date, and this is through March 31st, the April report wasn't ready yet to do this, so you had already earned $13,640, and that's just because of the extra interest why we did this. The market appreciation is negative 129, and you might go, well, man, we're getting killed on this. The nice part is, when you hold the bonds, they pay you the interest for the whole time and pay you back in full as you let those mature. So as long as you're not gonna sell them, they're gonna pay back the full par value of the bond at that maturity date. We have bonds maturing throughout, so it's laddered, so there's some coming due this year, next, and so on, out quite a few years. The nice part with the interest rates going up, which is why the market appreciation is going down, is because people are going, well, I don't wanna pay you, I may still wanna buy your bond, but I'm gonna pay you less because I can go get a new one paying a higher interest rate. So to make it worthwhile, I'll give you less money for yours currently. So that's where that's going. But as the bonds mature, we're buying new ones that are gonna be paying a higher interest. So when we started it, we were looking at maybe 1.5%. Now we're probably up to 2.5%. So not huge, but extra 1% on close to 3 million adds up in a hurry. And I pointed out that 13,000, I don't remember exactly what you're getting on the bank side, but I just ran, I think it was roughly 0.3% maybe. For a whole year, that'd be about 9,000 in income. In the first 3 months, you're already at 13. So I think that's kind of the number to look at. On the next page, and this will get nicer as it has a longer time frame. I like this one because it breaks it down year to year how it's been doing and shows how much income. So last year it was 22,000, just that June to December. So obviously, again, a nice amount of income compared to what you get sitting in the bank account, which is why we're looking at this as the option. Otherwise, it goes into, on the next page, a lot of the details of, just the return numbers. Again, this is taking into account the market appreciation. Obviously doesn't look real good, but I still fully believe over time this will get better because, like I said, the bonds will pay you back the full par value at maturity. And for you guys, I don't think there's any plans to sell early. I mean, we certainly have that, and it is liquid if you guys need the money for something. It's not like you can't sell them, but we just have to show you what it would be at right now if we were to sell them. Otherwise, the last couple pages are just all the individual bonds. I don't want to waste your time going through each one unless you guys have questions, but we have a wide variety of U.S. Treasuries, U.S. agencies, taxable muni bonds from other cities, states, different things to help earn on the return. You can see the current yield on the far right column. Overall, the total is 1.85 right now is where that yield is. So it's already started to creep up a little bit even in just a year from bonds that have already matured and buying in new ones. So I guess I would just, open it up to questions. I don't know if anybody has thoughts. And I guess the forgot there was one on the very last page, it does tell you kind of the yield, the maturity of the 2.38 is kind of a good one to look at, because that takes into account what we paid for the bonds compared to what they're gonna yield over the maturity. So that 2.38% is kind of what we're expecting for a current yield currently, so. Yeah, other questions or thoughts, concerns? I know we started it and it's been a tough period to kind of get going on with the returns looking bad, but, you know, those are kind of to take with a grain of salt a little bit, because you will get the full value back. Like I said, we are buying very high quality bonds, so I don't expect any of them to fail. That's really when you lose on bonds, is if you give to a company, or in your case, a government entity that fails and goes bankrupt and can't pay back. We monitor that very closely and make sure we're getting into high quality places that, you know, don't have a high risk of failure. Because that's the biggest concern, is we want to make sure that you're not losing the principal. You do take a little less interest to do that. If we went to higher risk bonds, we could do a higher interest rate, but it's probably not worth the risk to do it. So.
Blaine, this is your portfolio, right?
Yep. So the 3 million, we're good as long as we don't cash out.
Right,
My understanding.
you'll pay back as the bonds mature, and they have, you know, all different maturities, but as they mature, they're gonna pay back the full par value of the bond.
And when you're looking at the market
And
appreciation, that's just a number there, because we're locked in at.
that's only if we sell, so even if it was up to 100,000, you really aren't gonna get that unless we're selling it. You know, when it's up, there are times that we may go, hey, it might be worth selling this bond to take the gain and moving it into something else, because it's better than what you would do if you held it and just got the interest payments.
Correct.
But basically, that income number's the reason we're doing it. You know, and we started with the 3 million, I think there's a couple CDs still at the bank that are coming due. I don't know if there's any interest. I know it's tough when the market's down, it's easier to talk about putting more in, but certainly that interest number, and like I said, with new money, we're probably looking at closer to 2.5 if we were to put more in at this point. So there's something to think about if you have other funds that are earning very low. Bank rates still have not crept up much.
You don't lose money unless you mature them early, correct?
If you're gonna sell them,
Yeah.
yeah,
Otherwise,
that's
the locked in rate of that.
you're getting that rate. Like I said, the time you'd lose money is if we invested in something that failed completely. But
It's a non-actualized gain or loss.
Exactly. yeah, and
So
we
there's
just
no
have to,
stop.
on these reports, we have to show you what it would be valued at if you were to sell it at any given time. That's just the regulations we have to be by to do this for you. And so the value for you guys is kind of meaningless, the up and down market appreciation, because the plan is not to sell. We're doing it for that interest income.
We're safe now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing pretty safe. I mean, you can't get a whole lot, I mean, there was some like US government type stuff in there. There was some other, you know, state entities.
Yeah, really
But-
like T-bonds and stuff.
Yeah, it's,
If this comes to bad terms, the whole economy is gonna be way worse, like, we're in
everything's
trouble
gonna be
anyway.
bad.
Yeah.
We're in a lot of trouble if these start to fail. And a lot of that just comes down to your regulations. As a government entity, we have to follow the state statutes. And we have people that are keeping up on those and investing according to those state statutes, which is something that I don't think a lot of places could do, as I think you guys found out when we looked at it last year, and I know you put it out for bid, and I know some places said they just couldn't do it because they don't keep up with it, because it is an extra little bit of work to make sure you're following those. So,
What kind of rate are we getting on CDs now, Lisa? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, it's under 1. And I don't really think, I don't think we wanna tie up any more money, because I don't know what roads and, I mean, we have to look at that.
Well,
So,
yeah.
I mean, we don't wanna tie up
Well,
any more.
Yeah, and that was essentially my, I mean, it's good
Okay.
we're making, I mean, because we're talking yield is we're looking at the liquidity of the money sitting in a bank account is at 0.3% versus we're making 2.3 here. So as long as we don't have any problems tying that money up, it makes sense, you know, as long as they're safe, that we're gonna get that additional
Right.
2% is
Well,
a
I
good
went
thing.
with the CD, I was making more than the money market, so I tied it into for a year.
Yeah.
And they're not on the same date, you know, they're,
Basically, what you're saying, we just gotta make sure we have operational.
we do, I don't wanna have to be tied in here and then we have to cash out
Right.
something
Yep.
that we're. And then I don't know, do you guys, I was only giving Blaine and Lucas this copy. Do you guys want a copy, because I get a monthly report do you want that in your packet?
No, I don't think we wanna see it monthly, but I wouldn't hurt to see maybe quarterly or,
Okay.
We send you a
just
quarterly.
a quarterly
I
pack
send you
would
a-
probably be good just to
a
see
little
where
more
we're at.
detailed quarterly one.
But
that
I
we
mean,
send
that
you.
monthly one you send me,
Just the statements.
yes, I
Yeah.
didn't know if they wanted it, if you want that.
No, I-
That's not
I trusted Blaine's got his eyes on it, so
a,
Yeah.
if anything crazy is
The
going on.
quarterly one is always the better one anyway, because
Yeah.
then you get the ups and downs and you
You
kind of
see
see
a little
that
bit,
average.
it takes into account the bank stuff on, at least at Bremer. It has that kind of information on there, and it's not, the statement has all the transactions
Yes.
of buys and sells, which you guys probably aren't curious to look
The
into
auto
too
balancing.
deeply, but, you know, and for a cash flow, obviously that's something you have to deal with, and, you know, we can certainly work with you on that too, if you wanna look at, well, you know, we're gonna need this in a year. You know, we could look at, hey, let's maybe buy a US Treasury that's out a year that's making 2%, and it's gonna come due in a year. So, you know, I'm not saying tie up, I mean, you need to make sure you're having your money
so I
where you
think
want it, but
that's okay, what's there, it's to put
Yep.
more in there, that's what I would probably
absolutely,
advise.
so.
Well, all the federal money gonna want match money on roads, right?
Right.
So, you know, they
Okay.
have money to fix roads.
Yeah.
We
Okay,
could example, when I bought those water traders for
oh, okay,
almost
would be
$1 million,
it.
so.
Yeah.
Like, something like that is what at least is.
Yeah, it's a balance between making sure we get some return on it versus keeping enough liquid so that we have the ability to
Yeah.
pay for things.
And as you can see, you don't wanna try to sell, I mean, not that every year is gonna be down like it is
Right.
this year, but, obviously that's not ideal if you are having to sell some to take a loss.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely something to think about.
You're definitely watching out for our best interest, right?
I have to, Bremer's a fiduciary in our spot, and we have to be in that role, so that's 100% my job, but,
A lot of people don't understand on the bonds, even if you have a CD, you can pay a penalty.
right, if you have to cash it out early, you can pay a penalty of, you know, a few months' interest or whatever it might be, depending on the CD, but,
This is just a long haul.
exactly. So,
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions or discussion? Okay, looks good. Appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, it's gonna come over here and walk in and go, what the heck?
Yeah.
Everyone's gone. Okay, where we at here? Kevin, morning.
Morning. First up, we talked quite a bit already about the road updates, but we'll go through it again. I think we've got 9 roads that are actually closed right now. And probably another half dozen that are just partially fenced off, you can get around the bad spot, that type of thing. So,
For the fenced off ones, we're checking those frequently, just.
yeah, every morning, and sometimes in the afternoon, depending on the situation.
Just don't want it to go bad and someone thinks they can drive around it.
Right.
Are we getting, just a word of caution, are we getting some pictures of these?
Yeah, we take pictures of them.
Okay. Are we
That's
putting them,
part,
are we putting them on the state website?
state.
So they can see what's
No,
happening up here? And when we go down there to, we gotta fix these roads.
That's something you
help.
can do if he gets a picture.
Yeah, I mean, if they ask for it, we haven't, but we haven't been sending,
I have sent the complete washout one element of the state. If you have more pictures, yeah, send them my way. I'll take all of them, I'll send them out.
You'll get them sent down there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I think the state's pretty well aware, cause we're not the only county in this,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, like.
Well,
Yeah,
no, I
yeah,
mean,
I agree.
A lot of the representation in
Yeah, they
Bismarck
need-
comes from the western part, and
They need
they're
to know what's
still
going on.
basically in a drought after 30, 40 inches of snow, they're still in a drought, so.
Yeah.
I mean.
Just so that, I think the pictures is a good idea, just to get out there. I mean,
It's actually a requirement for like a FEMA or a federal disaster,
Okay.
so
Right.
we do have the pictures, but we haven't sent them to anyone yet.
I think if, Chris, if you have time, I think that drone imagery would work really, really nice on that. Sometimes when you have that many roads like that.
Yeah.
But,
I was actually planning on that sometime today if weather cooperates.
for,
In the drone, you get the drone up there taking pictures of the water out of farmland. And farmers are going down in June and deciding whether they want to seed it again or, you know, take BP and, some of the pictures would be pretty beneficial for farmers and say, okay, here's the way it looked in the first part of May, how did you want me to get this seeded, you know? But I don't think there'll be any argument from the government either on that.
Never know though.
You never know. Pictures are worth a lot of words.
It's funny with a hole in the road picture, this one looks exactly like that one, you know, unless there's something in the background.
We're sending out the same picture of the same road.
Make sure you got.
Yeah, we got 12 roads out.
Make sure every location on your phone.
Yep. Make sure your location is up. No, cause in that Herald or the WDA, I mean, Trail County after that last run, I think they said they had 50-some spots that washed out. I mean, total washouts. So, I mean, they were just trying to put stuff together, and that was before the last weekend of rain, I believe it was. So they were just trying to get the main arteries open, try to get them built so that people could just get them out of the county.
They're pretty ugly.
Yeah.
And 90% of these, there's nothing wrong with the culverts, they either find a frost line in there, I don't know how it's happening, but the water finds a way through that, above the culvert. I'm thinking it's a frost line, I have no
Sure.
engineer, so I don't
Start
know,
moving loose dirt.
but, yeah.
That's
You
where,
know
I
how
can find a
we-
washout spot, basically.
Once in a while, you'll slip and the inch of dirt will move and it's right on top of that frost line, so it's kind of the same concept here, I think, I don't know, who knows? But I do know that most of those culverts are fine under there. There's probably one or two that are got a hole in them, but.
Yeah, plugged up where they're frozen, so they just can't water in any place. Well, water's gonna find the path of least resistance, it always does.
So any more questions on roads? We're running out of road, we're being pretty creative with road close signs, but they're hard to find anywhere. We're pulling them out of the ditches from years ago. And weight limits, they finally went on yesterday morning, so they're enforced throughout the state now and in our county also. And then the next, we got the remaining summer maintenance contracts, so the only two we got to make a motion on today is South Minnewacan and Dry Lake, that'll be the last two we have.
So moved.
second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second to sign the, summer maintenance contracts for South Minnewacan and Dry Lake. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
And then KLJ did give us the contract, or they're called task orders for the engineering, the construction engineering on Ramsey 3 up by Hamden. Paul, you wanna?
Yep, sure, the scope is pretty short, since the MSA, the task orders are nice and clean, they just have each work item spelled out in the scope, and those are matched up in the spreadsheet. It's attached, each staff person was listed, we got myself, Greg, and Ryan, for the most part of the hours, and then Rob come in from, he was in our office here, but he was still in Grand Forks now, so I'll have him come over now where needed. And then we've got Brandon Jones down from Valley City for the asphalt testing. We may have to sub that out depending on workload, but the cost wouldn't change. It'd still be hourly, and then I guess I'd probably submit them to the task order to really take those hours out and put them into a sub if we have to. Then surveyors, Carl also needed a preliminary survey as well. And Angela to help out with paperwork and payroll since it's federal aid. only 11 days of expenses of people in from other offices for a month-long job or so. If you have any questions on that, I think it's about 7.8% of the construction dollar amount, which is very reasonable.
So that figure is like, that, you know, this is just an estimate of what the labor's gonna be, it's $120,215.
Yes, and it's hourly, so, you know, if it's, we're probably come in under that, I think we're about 7,000 under on the last one.
So I've looked it over and it looks reasonable to me, so I guess I would ask for a motion to accept that task order.
Move to approve task order.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the task order with KLJ for the Ramsey County 3 engineering, not overlay north of 17. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
And the last thing I have is I need to put a order together for culverts for inventory. It looks like we're gonna be using a lot, so I thought I'd get in my order ahead of 25 other states or counties. So that's a big order, and it's gonna cost approximately $106,000. And my land and budget for that is $125,000, but that's one of those in and out line items, resale most of these culverts, so. I'd like a motion to order those.
So, second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the ordering. This isn't paying, correct? Just ordering.
Just
Okay.
order.
Ordering $106,000 worth of culverts for usage and resale. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
That's all I have, unless you have something for me.
Stream crossing standards that you're asking the Department of Water Resources on. Did Matt get back to you on the completion of those? He said,
Not the
what was
last,
it?
my last email to him, he has not done that.
Supposed to be like the end of last week.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure they're a little busy statewide, but, you know, it's been since, what, August?
Yep.
Which one are we waiting for? Which ones?
There's one way up in the corner by Dakota, and then there's one on Highway 1 to the, it's north of Edmore, and then west of 1 about half mile or so.
Okay, so these are on our county, they're on
Yeah,
our county roads? Just culvert?
No, they're
culvert
both on
replacement?
township roads, but they're bridges that,
Oh, okay,
we needed a stream crossing standard, so we know what size culverts to put
okay.
back in.
So this is for next year or this year?
This year.
This year.
Then we have one other one, that bridge, let's see, from Edmore Cemetery, about a mile and a half west. There's a bridge there where there's a little kink bend in the road. We did one there too, just to be prepared. I don't know if we're gonna put that in yet this year or not, but it's got some issues with the bridge. It's still safe to cross, but the guardrails are bad and something else too, I can't remember, but we did one there too.
We're gonna put culverts in there.
That would be a,
Is it hard to get these extreme crossings?
oh my goodness, yeah, I could read
I mean,
it.
it hasn't gotten any better, I mean.
It seems like we've been talking about this for multiple years, that they just can't seem to stay on top of things.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Well,
Probably
long
forever.
time.
The sad part about that is if you ask KLJ or any engineering firm to do one for you, they'd have it done in a month, 2 weeks maybe. If you really got speedy, you could get it done in 2 weeks or so, but it takes a year to get one from them. And I get it, they're doing the whole state, but they've got 5, 6, 7 people working on it. I don't know how many people, but multiple people working on it.
Is that's a service provided, is that like century code mandated? Or it's just kinda always been a
The
courtesy
century
service?
code mandates it, but if we do it through the state, it's free.
Yeah.
Or if we hire an engineer,
I'm saying they don't have to necessarily provide it free though, it's just they always have.
no, that's part of their job.
That's
Part of their job,
So maybe they should, hire.
but it's one of those things, if we get one, we have to follow it.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
They just don't have enough staff or what?
right.
I don't know.
I assume that's the situation, I honestly don't
Is
know.
it in the Capitol building?
No, it's in the state water.
Just south of it. Yeah, it's state water,
Should we go down, knock on their door and
yeah. Yeah, I don't
help
know,
us out here?
I wish I knew, I'd try to.
I know some places in the state that have waited 3-4 years on some stuff. You know, it's, I don't know if it's time consuming or if it's just lack of staff or if they require additional information as they're moving forward through it, but it's.
Is it a question asked at that water?
It's been a frustration, and, you know, Kevin's always done a really good job of getting things in early, but it's still, you know, yeah.
Well, I can understand, you know, we can't expect it overnight, but I mean, if you get one last year under the assumption that we're going to do something next year, I don't think it's an unreasonable thing to say, you know, within 6 months, you should have some idea of what you're looking at.
And when I asked for them, I explained that to them, that we'd like to have this by the end of April, so we can get them ordered, in time to do the work, and that,
Well, and budget the funding.
yeah.
Are we buying them enough donuts or what?
Maybe send them some coffee money, yeah.
Last year was wrong, right?
Dick Johnson was on the board, and I even got him to get involved in the emails, and didn't help.
Well, let's hope they get it done, I guess that's all we can do at this point.
Yeah.
If they don't get it done, then we'll have to change plans.
I would certainly expect them within a
Yeah,
week or.
honestly, I expected it last week, but
Right.
it didn't show up, so.
Okay, any further questions for Kevin?
Thanks.
Yeah, no, thanks Kevin.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Sheriff,
Morning.
morning.
These items are all non-budgetary items, that's why we're here today. And I apologize, I don't have one of the quotes back on the tasers, I'll discuss that when I get to it. But, the SWAT team, you should have the proposal in front of you. This is something that Chief Kemet and I at the time, and it's never been on our budget, we've just been kind of funding it, using secondhand equipment for many, many, many years. And we finally decided we should probably get them some decent equipment. So this quote includes new body armor with the shock plates, they call them. The ones we have now are ceramic, evidently it's a liability if they have them, now we have to go to steel, anyway, that's a lot of the, there's a couple weapons and things on there, and then our portion is $9,066. That's 1/4 of the bill because we're sharing it with Benson County, the city of Devils Lake, and the SWAT team itself, to fund this equipment. So that's our 1/4 of it, and it's, something that I think we really need to, look at updating. The body armor they're currently using is secondhand from Atlanta. They upgraded, and that's, so I would say we've been getting by with, but as things are going, you know, we kind of need to, I think we need to upgrade, and this is a good time, you know, or a chance to do it, I think, so that's, or that, I don't know, do you want to do them separately, or do you want to do them all together? Separate? Well, that's kind of that one, if you have any questions. That's the reason we're doing it, we're updating and upgrading.
Quite a group of people involved with your SWAT team, huh?
Well, you need that, because a lot of them are, well, they're all law enforcement, so some are working and some aren't. So when you do have a situation, you can't call everybody on the list, because, you know, so we have to have we have a pretty good group of people that are attending training quite regularly, so, and it's, I think, something that's, as you can tell in the news, things aren't getting better, so, knock on wood, I don't know what you're finding here. We haven't had a major incident with them yet, so, but it's always nice to have it as a resource.
So this $9,000, Steve,
Yes.
that's what you're asking for?
Yes,
Everybody else,
9,000, and everybody else.
is on board?
The city has already approved theirs, Benson County's going this morning,
The SWAT team has the money in
and
it.
the SWAT team has the money. And we thought that was important, because they have that fundraiser golf thing. We thought that was important to keep them in the loop of being a viable share of their portion.
Right.
And not just give, you know, us give them all the money, you know, when they have their own fundraising source. But they don't have enough to cover this whole,
Right,
entities, so we thought that was fair when we had the discussion.
we take that out of that first ARPA money.
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking is where it should, cause like I said, these aren't anything I can't really budget for, we never really have.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, to do $9,066.50 as our cost share for the SWAT team, supplies and call. Further discussion.
Steve, do you have any type of idea of how often the SWAT team's been called out at all, or?
We kind of are using them as right now it's more of a training.
Sure.
So for example, if the drug task force has an arrest warrant on a house that we have questionable individuals in, we might call the SWAT team in to make entry.
Yeah,
So number one, we have safety, number two, they get some training.
right.
So actual call-outs has only been probably 5 or 6 in the last year, but we've utilized them
Good,
for training
Yeah.
purposes, for other things.
Yeah, well, that's,
I hope I never have to call them out, to be honest with you.
yeah, that'd be preferable.
It's like a fire truck, gotta
Yeah.
have them, but we don't
That
wanna
happens,
use
you
them.
don't really wanna use them, so
These new tasers, how long before they expire?
let's talk about that when we get to that, because that's a whole different. Okay, you want to, we can do it now.
Good question, we're gonna be ahead.
I was already ahead of you, I already had that plan, so.
Well, we'll vote on this first and then we'll move to the next thing. Okay, further discussion. Seeing none, are we paying for it or are we just ordering it? Okay,
Well, it's already, I'd as soon have it paid for, because it's already gonna be ordered.
well,
Well, it will be. We
when
need,
the
we
bill,
need
we
to-
don't have, well, it'll just be part of the normal bills when it comes.
we don't have to write it today, but once it comes in, I guess it's kind of what we're thinking.
Okay, further discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried.
Okay, the next one is our trap vehicle, which is actually the sheriff's department's. It's not under search and rescue, but the search and rescue is the ones that utilize it the most. The bogey wheels, the ones between the drive wheels, are disintegrating. There's chunks, and when I mean chunks, I'm talking baseball sized chunks coming out. They're a solid rubber tire, they're not inflatable. And it's a 1985 or 86 vehicle. Anyway, so the second request is, we did find a place or a way to repair that, so it's usable, and we have not had a whole lot of maintenance on that thing. But anyway, so the bid, I think you have that one too, don't you? It's for $2,319.63. That's to repair those bogey wheels or idler wheels. So when we do need it, that's available as well. I'd hate to see us throw a track when we're out in the middle somewhere. And again, that's another one of those, we got it for free from the Army, we've had it for many years, we've never had to do much to it, and this is kind of a, cost of doing business kind of thing. in my opinion.
$2,300 to get them fixed.
Yes.
How long have we had this?
Oh, 10, 12 years? It's
How long
longer
is
than that, because Nick and I went to Grand Forks and picked it up on the trailer back in many, many years. It was at the fire department for many years. So we've had it for a long
And
time.
we've never had to fix the wheels on?
Never. The only thing we've ever fixed on the thing was the water pump went out one time. And, we had to fix that, and that was like $400. That's nothing I've just been kind of doing in my budget, because it's been minimal, but.
Nothing lasts, I tell you. So,
Wow.
it's only 40 years old, we gotta put tires on.
We've used it twice where it's actually been needed, and it's worked like a charm, so
I'll move to
Who's that one?
I think it's worth maintaining.
yes.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second for, repairing of the track vehicle for $22,6332.
Okay, and these funds are also coming out of that original
Yes.
ARPA,
If we
first
could.
responder. Yeah. That'll, okay, Candy.
Okay.
Did you venture a guess on a new machine like this?
Oh. You know the
I've
brand
never
of this
seen
one?
it.
The brand of this one's a DeLorean, if that gives you any indication.
Really?
DeLorean Motor Corporation builds them, so
And it runs when you need it?
it's got a 4 and 6 cylinder in it.
Wow.
Anyway,
He's got no doubt.
Very good.
watch guard.
So,
Oh, stop.
so is that no to like shop charges and sales tax?
Whatever the estimate, a lot of
Because you have
times,
2232 written over on the side.
yeah, I'm not sure. This
Do we
is-
just wanna make the motion without a dollar figure? And then
It's either gonna be the 2232 or the 2319, so we're only, it's $100.
Okay. Well, let's just make the motion without including a dollar figure, just to
We need
clear the
this.
tires off the estimate. Okay. Okay, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. Watch guard and tasers.
Let's just do the watch guard. Last time we discussed this when we ordered the body cams, we have this spare, we have a unit that they have sent us that we have just sitting in the office. That's just the brain, I don't know what the name of the actual, but it's just the brains of the thing. It's not the cameras and the monitor and stuff, but it's the majority of the unit. And I wanna put it into service as a full unit, so we have a spare. So I apologize, but I didn't get that estimate until about 4:30 yesterday, so you don't have it in front of you, but, the quote I got for WatchGuard was $1,991 to make that a viable unit. Just for reference, to purchase a whole brand new, ready to go unit is about $6,000. So this is quite, a lot more cost effective if we can use this and put it in our another vehicle.
You can get it fixed.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, further discussion, questions?
Move the
Motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, to get the watch guard set up so we can put it in the vehicle. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, tasers. I don't know where to start with this one, but anyway, I'm not gonna ask for any money, but I'd like to discuss it with you about what, since they, in the last few months, they've quit making the items that we need for the tasers that we currently have. And it's another one of those, we're not gonna maintain them kind of thing for a while, and they're gonna be short, because we've had our tasers for, at least, that was back when Chief Kemet was here too, so 15 years, so over half of them are 15 years old. And once again, we don't use them very often, but, the new watch guard, or the new taser, which is Axon is what it's called, they won't sell you a taser anymore, which is like what I found out. So you have to rent them from them, so it's now become a yearly fee, which is very frustrating. I just can't buy one. So what I think I'm gonna have to do with this is put it into my budget for next year and try to work through it that way instead of coming in, we just can't, before we could just go buy a taser, it was yours. And then we just bought the accessories and the equipment, we bought cartridges, we bought batteries, we bought, and just go as we needed. But now they're saying they weren't gonna support that much longer. And then in the research, I found out that I can't just go buy one, I just can't buy tasers with new ones and replace the ones we have. So now we have to do this rental fee, and they'll send us new ones whenever and back and forth, but it's gonna cost us a yearly fee, which we have never done before.
How many we got?
10,
And they're 15 years old.
not all of them,
Okay, what,
over half of them are.
they work.
Yes, for now. But that's the whole problem, is because the cartridges are getting old and they're not sure if they'll work anymore because they've been sitting in the shelf somewhere for 10 years.
They're not making the cartridges anymore. and
Well,
now they're-
they still are for now, and then we got some time. But, you just can't buy new cartridges and,
But we gotta have a plan in hand. is
but
what
I have
you're
to have a plan in hand, and I didn't find this out before yesterday, so I think I'm just gonna have to scratch this off of today's, request.
What kind of price are they looking to rent?
I haven't even got that number yet, I'm still waiting.
You probably don't wanna know, right?
I probably don't wanna know. I know the city just did the same thing, and they went to that rental thing, and I think it was like $3,000 a year.
For all the tasers they have?
But they don't have everybody issued, they share theirs. So for example, the guys that are at home and not working don't have their, so when they come to work, they switch tasers with, so they only have 6, I think.
Right.
5 or 6.
That's all about right.
Where we, our guys are, anyway. So, does that answer your question, Mr. Volk, about tasers?
Yeah. I just, everything seems like it's going on a payment system.
It is, and it's, I mean, we bought those tasers initially, and we have had almost 0 update and maintenance on them, except for buying cartridges every year when we do our training with them, which is, it's what, $25 a cartridge, so, we're talking $250, $300 a year that we've been kind of maintaining to do our training and our recertifications, and now we're gonna have to do this yearly. Yeah, it's very frustrating, so.
Yeah, because they can just raise the rate.
Yeah,
Go
they
5
change the
years
rate
down.
when we're stuck, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a heck of a business model that you wanna buy something and they won't even sell it to you.
we have no choice, it sounds like, so.
That's
So
frustrating.
there's no other brands, there's only,
Aftermarkets?
Not that I'm aware of.
well, that's kind of my question, I mean, because if they're never gonna sell them, so how long, I guess it all depends on the contractual language, how long are they gonna constantly be replacing? Like every other year you get some new ones, or you hold on to them for a certain amount of time, or? Because at some point, they're gonna have old tasers stacked up if they just constantly replace them, and then they're gonna have to sell old tasers, you would think,
And then
and then
one
that's
they'll
gonna,
make the
unless
new
they make so much money up front, they
They'll
can
keep
just.
making it into the new
Yeah,
ones,
if
so.
they don't even.
So once you
don't
use
even
that
want them
taser,
sold,
then you have to
yes.
recharge it, right?
No.
Crazy.
No, the batteries are a single unit, and we've been able to maintain the same batteries over 5 years, because we aren't using it on a regular, So when you turn it on, there's a little screen on the back that tells a number, that's the percentage of battery you have left. And most of ours are still in the 60 to 70%. And about the only time we change the battery is when it gets down to maybe 15. And then we'll start to change the battery, just because that's getting close.
So that's the cartridge then you were talking
So-
about?
The actual cartridge is the part that goes on the front that
Oh,
shoots,
Okay.
and there's gas to propel it, and that's what they're claiming is starting to degrade, is the gas in
so
the.
that's what I'm asking, if you were
CO2.
discharged, that's what you have to replace it, is that?
Yes,
cartridge?
every time we have, that's the part, the cartridge, the front part,
With
and
this
that's
rental,
about $30 to $35.
so with this rental, I know you don't know yet, that's.
But according to them, the rental comes with all the cartridges we need, so, as no charge, so, but they always have some, it's still frustrating. We still do better off being able to buy one, but evidently that's not an option, so,
Well, you should put it in your budget because
yeah. I don't have the numbers anyway, they haven't gotten it to me, so I can't even proceed today, so, but I think it's gonna be something we're gonna have to do as a yearly budget from this point
yeah,
on.
because we're gonna be sitting here next year doing the same thing.
Same, and we can't do that, so I'll just have to incorporate that into my budgetary item and go from there.
Okay.
What you have not working very well, we'll have to do that.
Well, we don't use them that often, so it's hard to,
We might have to start.
we've been lucky enough to only have to fire them at training.
Yeah.
I think in the 15 years we've had them, we've only utilized them 3 times.
You ain't
Good.
Total.
One of those deals where you don't wanna use it, but it's gotta happen.
It's available.
Any volunteers?
We will gladly have volunteers, absolutely.
Well, thank you.
No?
court or pays.
Send right out the cow,
Okay, anything else?
No, sir, unless you guys have anything for
Any
me.
questions for the
huh? Put
sheriff?
them in their place.
Alright,
Thank
thanks
you.
Steve, appreciate it.
Steve.
Okay, on to new business, if I'm reading this correctly. Approval of lodging for the auditor treasurer conference. It's above the state rate by a few dollars. They don't honor the state rate, it's just the search where they're going.
I'll move.
Yeah,
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve the increased lodging fee for the auditor treasurer conference. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Alright,
Pose same sign, motion carries. District Health Board appointments. Who wants it? Who's willing to volunteer?
Blaine, you interested?
Yeah, I can.
Okay,
Alright.
well, Mr. McKay had come down and asked me if I would be interested in, looking at the time constraints. It's not that overwhelming, it's in the evenings, it's quarterly, it's something that I can do as well. So, but Mr. Blaine, Mr. Bolt wants it.
Either way.
You two decide,
I
no?
think we should set up an arm wrestling match here. See who gets it. I'm
And then I would forfeit.
You forfeit? Yeah. Is there any other we gotta take care of today, or is that the only one?
Well, for now, I think that would be it.
For now?
For now.
You fine with that, Jeff?
Yeah.
You want supper, or don't they have supper?
Well, we'll take a motion.
Better than donuts at the law enforcement center.
Okay, do we have a
Motion.
motion to approve Blaine?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Commissioner Volk to the District Health Board. Further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, very good. Approval of the VA credit abatement.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Notice of annual meeting for the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund. We have the option to appoint somebody to be our delegate, correct? The two individuals are running unopposed as well, correct?
Correct.
So we don't necessarily have, we just, if somebody wants to go to the meeting,
Yep.
we can have a delegate there. When is the meeting again?
May 19th.
Candy, you wanna know?
No thank you. Probably a little busy.
I think most of us are gonna be a little busy on the 18th, May's not good.
Yeah, I'll just be a little busy with election.
Okay, I guess it's just for informational purposes, and if we don't wanna set a delegate, we don't have to. It's,
Hey, just,
they sent us the minutes and everything and everything like that, so.
do you want to, vote for a county representative? A county representative on the Endorf board would be, Chad Peterson, it looks like. Chad's currently the Cass County, Board of Commissioners, has been since 2012.
Can we send in our votes proxy?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
do we just get to vote on the county side of things? Or on both?
That's the only option.
Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah, the other one is city, so.
Yeah, so we just get to vote under the county portion, okay?
Go ahead. I'll
Well,
sign.
we can make a motion then if we want to send in the votes proxy.
I'd make a motion to send our vote in by proxy for Mr. Chad Peterson.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Site authorization. Charitable gaming, correct?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the charitable gaming site authorization. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approved letter of resignation.
I have a point on this, so this is a formality. When it was deposited with Candy, because she's the county auditor, it took effect. But essentially you all are acknowledging that you received it, so.
Okay.
Basically, you can't deny his resignation, is what it.
Well, no, it's down to you. Serve the pleasure of people. Let him resign. Okay, do we have a motion to accept the resignation letter? Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second to accept the resignation letter. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now we're going to have to go through the, appoint new chairman first, and then we'll go from there.
I'll move we have Adam as chairman.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Further discussion? guess we're not nominating, do we have to nominate, or do we just appoint?
It says,
To the point.
yeah, vacancy, whatever, shall elect another chairman.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to appoint myself as the new chairman, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Okay, well then if that's the case then, since I'm moving out of the vice chairmanship, I can't hold both at the same time, we'll have to appoint a new vice chairman. Do we have a
I'll nominate Blaine.
okay. We have a nomination, a motion for Blaine to be vice chairman, do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Okay, Commissioner Volk is the new vice chairman. I'm just gonna make a note of that, I'll forget. So I have it on my notes. Okay, appointee to fill the vacancy on the commission. At this point, I'll turn it over to the state's attorney to give us our options and how we have to go about doing this correctly.
Okay, so this is a little confusing, but if a vacancy occurs within 95 days of an election, it's gonna be a general election. So you all get to decide and meet. If you can agree on somebody, that person gets appointed to fill out until November, when the election happens, and December 1st, when the commissioners take place. If you cannot agree, the way the code reads is because we have an elected county treasurer, the treasurer will fill until that election in November. Does that make sense?
And the treasurer can fill it no matter how far you're out from the election?
Until the next general election.
My question would be on the expediency of appointing someone. Do we have to do it at this meeting, or if we wanna have the option to try to appoint somebody that's not the treasurer, do we have a meeting to make a determination?
It's not entirely clear. It says,
That's exactly what I want to hear.
I'll read it to you.
I appreciate the candor though.
When a vacancy occurs in the Board of County Commissioners, the remaining members of the board immediately shall appoint some suitable person to fill the vacancy from the district in which the vacancy occurred.
Yeah, so I guess it depends on what your definition of immediately is.
Right, so some would say day of, some would say next meeting, some would say we gotta gauge who's interested. So it's a good idea to get the ball rolling, maybe have a discussion today.
Yeah, and yeah, we have to have a discussion on how we wanna move forward, that's not a question, it's just a matter of, I just was wondering if, you know, cause if it's, depends, like I said, depends on what your definition of immediately is. Okay, I guess what are the feelings of the other commissioners?
One good thing is we are having a general election coming up,
Yes.
you know.
It was brought to my attention to have a special election, how expensive that is. You know, costly to the county.
But we wouldn't have to have a special election.
No. How many days out are we from the November election?
More than 95, and that's why it goes to November instead of June.
Yeah, so we're probably what, less than 6 months out, something like that? 180 days maybe at the most.
Right.
Somewhere in there. The question was asked of me, so, and I guess it doesn't matter that it's not germane necessarily to this specifically, but when the special election occurs, then it'll be under the same rules as the county commission election that's occurring currently. It'll be, you have to get signatures, certain amount of signatures within that time frame, 64 days previous to the election or whatever it is, and it'll be handled the same way then. It's kind of what I figured, and I told that individual, but I said I would have to get clarity.
So basically, if this goes to election, people will still have time to put their name in the hat.
Right.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, cause I think that's what the concern was, they're like, well, we're already past the date, and I said, no, basically it sets a new date of, I would probably around the first week of September or something is when the, people would have to have their name in to try to run.
So question is that the candidates that already applied, would they be able to qualify for this also, or they're qualified for the other one?
So it depends, which is a lawyer answer, but if they wanna go for Lucas's seat, it's an unexpired term, so it's a 2-year term. They would have to withdraw from the other seat, cause you can't hold 2 seats on the county commission at the same time. So, and it actually opens up all sorts of interesting possibilities, because if all 3 were to withdraw, put their name in the hat, then nobody'd be on the ballot for the other seat. So it's kind of a weird donut hole, it doesn't happen that often.
It's not like you can take them out of the poll that you have now.
Well, and hypothetically, they're already on the ballot for June, so they could announce that they're not running for that seat anymore, but more than likely, I would assume everyone that's running for that seat's gonna stay running for that seat. We'll have probably different people that are interested in running for this in the general, I would think, but you don't know that for certain, obviously. That's up to the people that are running for the current 2 seats to make that determination, how they wanna handle it.
If, in theory, you were to appoint somebody that was running, they would have to withdraw from the other one. Does that make sense? If you could agree on somebody that's a current candidate, does that make sense?
Yep, I'm tracking.
And so when they fill out the petition to get their name on the general election in September, that must be somewhere around September that they had filled that out and submitted.
Yeah, like 4th or the 5th.
And whoever the successful candidate is in that election, is it just a 2-year term then?
It's whatever the unexpired balance is, so 2 years.
Yeah, so they'd be running again in 20.
That way it puts it back into the same.
Yeah, so the cycle stays the same, so you're always going for it 2 years.
That's the purpose.
Correct.
Otherwise, hypothetically, you could have designations and all of a sudden you vote for 5 county commissioners.
Or you get that special election.
Yeah.
We'll go back to the special election, we could set a date in, let's say, the 5th of September, and have this particular item on the ballot. That's why I'm saying, that's a very expensive.
Well, hypothetically, yeah, you could have an election 95 days from today if you wanted to. I mean,
Right.
But, yeah, I don't
No,
don't see how
I'm not
that's even an
interested in
option
doing that.
because
No.
the cost of running a full county election when, it'd be one thing if we were, like you said, if we were 2 years out from an election date and we didn't feel comfortable appointing someone and we felt that a special was necessary, but when we're only 3 months past what a special election would be at the best. To me, we just make a decision, do we want to appoint somebody from the general populace, or do we want the treasurer to take that seat under the premise that we, and, that we don't wanna have to essentially pick somebody to sit in that seat otherwise.
I came in and talked to Lisa yesterday about it, and she had no problem sitting here for till November, so. I would recommend we do that. I think it's the simplest, the cleanest. I mean, she's familiar with how it works,
I do have a clarification.
conflict of interest.
No. So whoever is appointed, they're a full voting commissioner.
Correct.
They're not limited for like ties. It doesn't say exactly why it's written this way, that it's the county treasurer, but I think the intent is this person has already been elected by the community once. So, they've qualified as far as the election side of the house goes. But they're not limited just to tie breaking or things like that.
They have full power on the commission as any of us that are seating currently do.
That being said, in the best interest of like financial matters or things that affect her department, she should probably recuse herself when those come up.
Well, and in thinking about this over the weekend, my main, I shouldn't say concern, but consideration is that if we pick somebody from the general populace, we're what, 6 weeks away basically from starting the budget? So you have to have a pretty good working knowledge of how the budget how our budget process works, and you're gonna be kinda jumping in midstream. So I don't know if that's necessarily from the county's perspective, the best option. My mind went initially to, do we have any previous county commissioners that would be willing to just sit those 6 months? Maybe if somebody would be willing to do that, if we had somebody that, had previously been elected by the community and was willing to sit on those 6 months, but I haven't talked to any of them, so I have no clue. But that was just my initial thought process. I would have no problem also with Lisa sitting on for 6 months, if she's willing to do so, just because she obviously knows the ins and outs of the county and the budgeting, and it would be fairly seamless, and if she's willing to do so, I think that's a decent option as well.
Do we have to make the decision today?
Depends how you define immediately.
Well, and that's kind of,
I think immediately 3 months.
well, and that was where my line of questioning was, because if say we don't seat somebody today, but we decide on a process, I think that at least says immediately, at least you decided on a process. But if you decide to punt it and punt it and punt it, then if you then decide we're gonna appoint somebody, then all of a sudden you could have some people saying, well, that wasn't immediately, you didn't follow century code. So, I think it's kind of a quagmire in terms of, we either have to make a decision today about our process, if we're going to go outside to the public, or we're gonna seat the treasurer. At least that's just my opinion, that's my read of the situation, so to speak. And if we have a process in place on how we wanna do it,
Right.
good, because I think that at least that demonstrates the immediacy that we have an idea of how we want to do it.
I did speak with a former commissioner, Mr. Berg, retired from the commission, when he became a state water commission representative, and then, so he understands county government. He would be willing to do it. I think there's some other retired county commissioners that would be willing to do it for the 6 month period, if that's the process we wanted to go.
Hold on, gotta clarify here. If you appoint somebody, they're on for 2 years. Lisa is 6 months.
So then it's not to the general, that's for the whole term then?
What?
Okay.
Really?
Thanks.
Wow, that's an easy decision then.
Oh, yeah, then at that point, we're probably not gonna find somebody that's just willing to fill 2.5 years of a term. Cause that's a pretty good commitment unless it's somebody that wants to run again. And then at that point, I get back to the problem of, I don't feel comfortable picking somebody, basically putting them and giving the power of the incumbency basically 2.5 years from now. Because then we're basically picking a winner against, cause then they're walking in with being an incumbent in the next election.
November's gonna be here before we know it.
Yeah, like I said, if it was a week after the last election, then I would say you either pick somebody or you have a special.
Let's just go with,
But that's your interpretation of, so if we appoint somebody,
They're the
sit for the remainder of the term.
Correct.
Well,
See, I was under the assumption that if we appointed somebody, it was just till the next general.
That's if you can't agree on somebody.
Oh, okay.
I may have misspoke.
Oh, that's okay.
yeah, let me ask Candy just for clarification. Put this on as a special election for November alongside our general election. What's the extra cost? Pretty minimal or more? More than minimal?
To do a
Fine.
separate ballot just for that,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Headache?
Do we have to have a separate ballot? It's gonna be printed on the same ballot.
No,
It's gonna be
it's
the
gonna be
same.
on the same ballot.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna cost us
So
anything
it's
essentially
not-
to do it in November.
Okay,
Right,
that's what I was
right.
getting at.
But if we had a special, it's gonna
But
cost
if
us.
you did a special
No, I
election,
didn't mean that. No, I
And
meant
that's where-
alongside or
Yeah,
general.
and then basically it's just gonna read in there.
It's just gonna
These
be-
candidates are for this,
Yeah.
these candidates.
Yeah, it'll say 2-year unexpired term,
So it's not a big deal.
not for the November, but if we did it in a special type situation, then it would cost a very decent amount of money. You don't even want to fathom, I guess, because it wouldn't be cheap.
Looks to me we have one, we just go with Lisa and do it that way.
I would say it would be fair to the vote of the people.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. I'll make that one.
Okay, we have a motion then to essentially appoint, well, not appoint anyone else and allow the treasurer to, are we appointing the treasurer, or are we basically punting and saying we're allowing the treasurer to take that position?
If you can't agree on somebody, then the treasurer gets appointed until November.
I know, but that's my question, by making a motion, if you're appointing her, then she's technically taking the 2.5-year unexpired term. We have to basically make the motion that we can't agree on anyone else, correct?
That's the way I understand it, and that seems.
Because otherwise, if we appoint her, then she has to resign to take her
Backwards,
seat.
right?
Yes,
Basically,
the wheels are turning in here.
what I've
Not a
gathered-
lawyer, but the wheels are turning.
What I've gathered is we all are in the same terms as, we don't wanna appoint because you have to fulfill the 2.5 years. So with that, we're basically not coming to a conclusion of doing it, so that would put Lisa into that role, correct?
Yes.
We don't make no motion on that then?
There wouldn't be, right? There wouldn't be.
I know, but I think you probably have to make a motion that we don't agree, because otherwise then, who has the power to then seat the treasurer? Century Code does, but it doesn't state within time frame other than immediately.
Because you were under the, assuming that it was 6 months also.
And that's what I assumed.
Yeah, and I was under that assumption as well.
But initially I was under the assumption that you appoint somebody and they fulfill that term till the end of that term, kind of thing. But in hearing, it got convoluted and messy, and how the 6 months came about, I'm not sure, but that was, yeah, I think it'd be reasonable to find a former commissioner that would do a 6-month deal, but I don't know if they left for a reason.
Yeah.
You know,
And they probably wanted to be done and be done,
Yeah.
2.5 years is a commitment, 6 months is one thing.
and 2.5 years is a commitment.
Well, yeah, we basically have two options. We either make the decision today that we're going to try to appoint somebody else from the public and solicit essentially resumes or interest, or we decide we don't wanna go that route, and we can't agree, and
I think to be fair to the community, we just don't agree, have Lisa sit in there and let the people vote. That's what I think.
That's what I was hoping.
this is a weird discussion because we're essentially agreeing not to agree.
Yeah.
I don't agree with you.
I just, because of the time frame.
You make the motion there.
Well, we had a motion and we didn't have a second technically, so it died for lack of a second.
I'll make a motion that we can't agree or appoint someone.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to second for the minutes that state we are not in agreement on how we should fill the term, and that the treasurer then under Century Code would take the seat. Correct? Works for you?
Sounds good.
Legally?
You got it right?
What he's reading.
It's 440205, vacancy in the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, yeah, maybe part of the motion should be that we essentially are going to follow the Century Code guidance in 440205, and that we cannot agree. Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. The next question I would have, just so then do we have to have a swearing in then? At our next meeting then?
Alright, so any appointment to fill a vacancy must be made in writing, except as otherwise expressly provided in law. So, and then the next section says, a person appointed to the office shall qualify in the time and manner, so Lisa would be seated at the next meeting, that is the way I read that.
Okay. So we have to write it down, have her do the oath, like always, sign, and then swear her in basically to sit on the commission for the 6 months. Okay?
Correct.
Well, then the auditor, Candy will be in charge of making sure we follow the guidance, and she can look through and make sure we got everything right. Sure, it'll be good. Okay? The other question I would have then, we don't necessarily have it on the agenda, but just it's not necessarily for this meeting, but guidance in terms of, we'll need a list of all of the outside boards.
And then determine when we're gonna have to make appointments for those outside boards, so that we can make sure, hopefully we don't miss any meetings in the next 2 weeks, but if one gets missed, it gets missed, I guess. And if there is a meeting that's going to be missed, if you compile it, just give me a holler and I can at least go sit and just so we have a representative there, not to vote obviously, but just so we'll have a representative or we'll find somebody to sit there, so. Okay. Anything else for that then? I think we got that covered. Okay, next up on the new business, ANS week. We have a short but sweet proclamation in front of us. I guess Jeff can describe the concept behind it.
So a few years back, the Aquatic Invasive Species Committee come up with the idea for an Aquatic Nuisance Awareness Week to bring more attention to the problem that aquatic nuisance would create within our state. Past couple of years, Governor Burgum has signed a proclamation declaring an aquatic nuisance species awareness week. Just a little extra education, promoting people take the steps necessary to reduce the risks of spreading aquatic nuisance within our state, following the ANS guidelines through the Game and Fish, as well as the Aquatic Invasive Species Committee. We actually have a statewide plan that the governor has approved for preventing aquatic invasive species. So with that in mind, the proclamation that the governor has designated is for May 15th through the 21st, 2022. And a little short statement is Ramsey County Commission recognizes the importance of protecting our state and county water resources from aquatic nuisance species and hereby fully support the efforts of the North Dakota Game and Fish Department's prevention measures and fully support Governor Doug Burgum's proclamation designating the week of May 15th through the 21st, 2022 as Aquatic Nuisance Species Awareness Week in the state of North Dakota, signed by the chairman of the Ramsey County Commission.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the proclamation?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second, well, I guess it's a resolution supporting the proclamation. Okay, we have a motion and a second to support and sign the resolution supporting the Aquatic Nuisance Species Awareness Week. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Good. Last on new business, Outlets Advisory Committee meeting.
So the Devils Lake Outlets Management Advisory Committee annual meeting to discuss the operations of the state outlets. It's a 17-person board or committee, and made up of public officials, citizens within the upper Devils Lake Basin, and as well as the lower, the upper Cheyenne, lower Cheyenne, and the Red River, as well as a representative from Minnesota and Manitoba. Previously, those meetings have all been in Carrington. For the past couple of years, they've been held virtually. This year's meeting will be held right here in Devils Lake at the Lake Region State College at the Hofstede Precision Ag Center, May 11th, from 1 to 4 p.m. Just wanted to make people aware of that.
Right now, it's probably pretty important to go to, huh?
It's always a pretty important meeting, and sometimes it gets, lost when it's at Carrington or virtually, and it's usually right in the middle of planting season. So it's very difficult for producers and people in the agricultural industry to get there, but it's always usually well attended, and I think it's important for our community.
Try to be there if we can.
Try to be there if we can. Last Thursday, we got a new long-range lake level prediction from the National Weather Service. and, you know, and all along, they've kind of been giving us that 50% chance of 51 well, or 50 point something. And Thursday's elevation outlook is 95% chance of hitting 51.7, which is about a 4.5 foot increase from where we started at this spring. And that would certainly be a record inflow, and that's from April 25th to September 30th, with the calculation of the state outlets operating at 350 cubic feet per second.
And I'm sure they're not gonna be able to start the outlets for quite a while until
Yeah.
Cheyenne starts to calm itself down too, because there's plenty of water running to one.
There's a lot of parameters that they have to meet before they're started and operational.
This is where they should be pumping it back to Dakota.
No,
Dry.
Is there even?
You get water around hill.
Pumps? I think if the canal
Oh.
was finished, it would work.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that they're gonna have to start doing controlled releases from the Bald Hill at some point too, because there's so much water behind it, and they built the dikes up in Valley City, so it's gonna be a while until we can start.
they're
Yeah,
doing that.
that's what I thought, I heard that correctly, so it's gonna be a while until we're able to start moving some of our water off the lake, so. Yeah, it's amazing how much difference a year can make,
Incredible.
a month.
Yeah.
Basically, a month ago, it looked like there was a nice thaw and everything was looking halfway decent.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you put 6 inches of moisture on the basin in a month and
Right.
good.
So,
Very
but
good,
anyway,
good.
if you're interested in attending, I myself is the representative from Devil's Lake Basin. Bill Burns is the appointed representative from Ramsey County. Dick Johnson, city mayor, is appointed for the city of Devil's Lake. And then I think there's Joel Anderson is the town or county representative. I think Mike Steffen is the Benson County representative. And it kind of goes all the way down the line. Complete list of people and representatives on that committee is on the governor's website under boards and appointments. So I think there's a representative legislator from upper and lower. I think Senator Elke is our representative on that, and I'm not sure if he is downstream, and it used to be Bill Devlin, but I'm not sure if he's still on there or not.
Okay, try to get there on the 11th. Let's make a presence known so we know what's going on. Okay, anything else, Jeff?
No.
Good to go. Okay, visitors and delegations. We have a few people in the crowd. Anybody want to chime up? Just here to watch. Okay. Portfolios. Start with Commissioner Holt.
Lisa's obviously was brought out, recorder's office, they said, the file stuff is going good. Can't remember how far, I want to say they're 279. But it's been going well. I didn't make the last meeting for the fair board, but it sounds, I talked to a couple people, it sounds like they're gonna, as far as raising the money, they got the lady involved that was doing the, for the grants. They're supposed to have a plan for that. Lake access, everything's normal except the boat landings aren't gonna obviously be put in until ice is off. They said completely off, because they always get that question, well, this side of the lake's open, the other side isn't. Absolutely not. They had too much damage a couple of years ago, so that it's looking, we were actually looking to extend the docks, but I think with the water coming up, we'll probably be good there, and that will save some money. But other than that, and then the day grant, the sewer to clean out those landings to go for sanitation. And other than that, that was it. All I have.
Okay. Commissioner Brown.
Yeah, senior bales going fine. At the jail, we're expecting the state inspector the 10th and 11th of this month. The new captain is doing very well. So happy with that. So. And they have worked with the junior college, or Dakota State College, to get the CO program going for a fall semester class. So.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know all the particulars yet and the details, but.
Are they still going to be coming to us for some startup funds possibly, or?
I couldn't get that answer, I guess. I asked the question, but it's still kind of up in the air yet, so.
I know I got an employee that was caught over at the jail
Good.
last week. She decided to leave the guard.
Definitely difficult to hire help over there, just very difficult. So, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Frith?
No, I've got nothing. It's gonna be a busy spring with all this water, I know that.
Short and sweet, I like it. From my perspective, trying to think here. I was not able to attend social services last month, I was on the road, so I'm not quite sure. There wasn't anything too pressing there on the agenda. Our ad has actually been fairly quiet overall on the portfolio side of things. North Central Housing, we had our, not annual meeting, but we had to do a special meeting to, okay fund release, from HUD, so we got that taken care of. We got a, legal opinion from the state's attorney, so I think everything's good there with HUD, so, we're entering contracts with the other counties we work with. So everything seems to be going well there. Trying to think of the portfolios, what else I got? Everything's been pretty quiet. Lastly, I would just, from my perspective, like to, and I don't know if it's popular or not, but publicly thank, even though things didn't end well for Commissioner Wakefield, ex-Commissioner Wakefield, still publicly thank him for his time on the commission. You know, he still did spend 6 years here, and even though I'm sure he's obviously not happy about helping and everything like that, but still, you know, thank you for his time. Public service is always difficult, so, but just from my personal perspective. From that, anything else for the good of the order? Seeing nothing, we have a motion to adjourn. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, vote by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. I'm gonna crank the gavel softly.